You know what makes this group of Orioles special? It's that no matter how bad they look for 7 or 8 innings of a ball game, they are still in a position to win at any time, in a position to rally at any time. And that's what they did Wednesday night. The comeback, James McCann walk-off victory over the Royals. And I'll recap it all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, April 4th, 2024, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap a wild comeback walk-off victory for the Orioles over the Royals on Wednesday night. James McCann gets the winning hit, and the Orioles take the series. Then we'll talk a little bit about the wild rain delay situation that happened on Wednesday. We'll discuss the unbelievable performance from the Norfolk Tides bats on Wednesday night, and then a couple of other Orioles news and notes as well. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home the big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. So let's jump into the big moment of Wednesday. Orioles 4, Royals 3, the final score from Oriole Park at Camden Yards, a game that started 5 hours after its scheduled first pitch, a 5-hour rain delay. And the Orioles played like there was a 5-hour rain delay for the first 7 innings of this game, but it didn't matter. They get 2 in the 8th, they get 2 in the 9th, and they win it on James McCann's walk-off 2-run single to beat the Royals 4-3, win another series. They take 2 of 3 from Kansas City, and the Orioles now 4-2 in the first 6 games of the season. Both of the wins in this series via the walk-off. Of course, Jordan Westburg had the walk-off 2-run homer in the 9th on Monday night in the first game of this set. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles 4-3 win over the Royals on Wednesday. And the first thing you need to know is what a rally it was late in this game for the O's. They had nothing going, 0 runs through 7 innings. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But they started to pick things up in the 8th inning. And it was a little bit of some unlikely heroes that kind of got it started in the 8th. We saw Colton Cowser come off the bench to pinch hit, and he dumped a single into left center field to begin the 8th with the Orioles trailing 3-0. And they just kind of continued on from there. James McCann came to the plate. I was kind of surprised. It was righty-righty. James MacArthur was the pitcher for the Royals. The Orioles had multiple lefties left on the bench, including Ryan O'Hearn. And I was very surprised they let James McCann hit, and he delivered. 104 off the bat for a double, made it 2nd and 3rd with nobody out. Ramona has popped out, but Gunnar Henderson with a hard hit sac fly gets the Orioles on the board at 3-1. And then Adley Rutschman ropes the ball down the right field line. RBI single makes it 3-2. Now he tried to stretch it into a double. And I'm going to be honest with you. People were very upset, obviously, with, Adley getting thrown out at second to end that 8th inning. Ryan Mountcastle was due up next. There was a lefty on the hill for the Royals, and he hadn't reached the 3-batter minimum yet. So he would have had to have faced Mountcastle, unless, of course, he chose to just walk him. And either way, the O's are in a really good position if Adley just stays at first base. But I like pushing the issue. That ball got past Renfroe. He had to make a lunging stab just to pick it up. He was all the way against the wall in right field, and it would have taken a perfect throw and a perfect tag to get Adley out at second. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Renfroe made an unbelievable throw. Great scoop and tag by Bobby Witt to get Adley out. Now, it still brought home the run to make it 3-2, but of course, you did end the rally in the inning. I just thought it was a gamble worth taking for Rutschman. Then you get yourself in a spot where Mountcastle just got a single and you tie the game. Sometimes just great defense beats you, and I felt like that's what happened in the 8th. But the Orioles still rallied. They get the 0 top 9, and then they come out there, and in the 9th inning, the Royals go back to Will Smith, who did get the save Tuesday night, but did look a little shaky and has been a bit shaky at times. They go back to Will Smith, and the Orioles just once again jump on him immediately in that ninth inning. Will Smith is not the closer he used to be. Ryan Mountcastle draws a 4-pitch walk. Santander punches a single through the left side. All of a sudden, it's first and second with nobody out. Now, Brandon Hyde put the bunt on with Jordan Westburg at the plate. Westburg, who's been swinging it well, had the walk-off Monday, has the favorable matchup, the righty Westburg with the lefty on the mound, and he had him lay down the sac bunt. And now Westburg got it down and got the runners to second and third with one out. He did his job. You get the tying run to third base. But the statistics show the sacrifice bunt does not work in your favor statistically. It is not a good idea. I am hugely against the sac bunt. If you know me and you listen to this podcast, it is what it is. I wasn't a fan of the move. And the other reason why I wasn't a fan of the move was because of what it would make the Royals do. They immediately intentionally walked Austin Hayes, and not like Austin Hayes has been swinging it well, but it's a lefty-righty matchup. You then load the bases. You put the double play into effect. You knew they were going to do that. So they do it to load the bases, and it brings up Colton Cowser with the bases loaded and one out. It's a tough lefty-lefty matchup for Cowser against Smith, and Brandon Hyde really doesn't have a bench to go to because, again, the only two bench players left were two lefties in Tony Kemp and Ryan O'Hearn. Now, O'Hearn, the much better hitter, but the O's try to hide him against lefties. And although Kemp is actually better against lefties than righties in his career, I don't think in that spot you're pinch hitting Tony Kemp for Colton Cowser. I think the general Orioles fan base would have lost its mind, and it was the right decision to leave Cowser in there. It just wasn't the right decision to bunt Westburg because then you're putting Cowser in that spot. That is a really tough spot for him in his rookie year. And what does he do? He strikes out looking, and all of a sudden now it's two outs. The situation changes completely. And then Brandon Hyde has another decision to make because it's James McCann coming to the plate. And although he is a righty who has hit better against lefties in his career, although didn't really do it in his first year with the Orioles last year, you're basically choosing, okay, do we want James McCann, who hasn't really hit for us, but at least he can hit lefties better, or Tony Kemp, who doesn't hit at all, or Ryan O'Hearn, who's the best hitter left, but we are trying our best to hide him from lefties, and he doesn't swing it well against lefties. And Brandon Hyde stuck with his backup catcher in James McCann, just like he stuck with him in the eighth. He delivered the double. He sticks with McCann. He gets ahead 2-0, and then hits one of his hardest hit balls in an Orioles uniform, smacks a single into left field, 111 off the bat. And it worked out, too, that Brandon Hyde put in Cedric Mullins as a pinch runner for Anthony Santander earlier in the inning. Mullins scores from second. McCann walks it off, and the Orioles win it by a score of 4-3. Just what a rally, what a comeback by those Orioles, and what another cool moment for a guy in James McCann who, is the backup catcher to Adley Rutschman, doesn't get a lot of praise, does a lot of the dirty work for the Orioles. Really cool to see McCann get that moment on Wednesday night. Second thing you need to know from this one on Wednesday is that the only reason the Orioles had to rally like that and had to score 2 in the eighth and 2 in the ninth to win this game is because Cole Ragans, the Royal starter, was so good. And if you didn't know Cole Ragans before this game, and that's okay, he only burst onto the scene in the second half last year on a terrible Royals team, you now know Cole Ragans. He was the guy who was traded to the Royals from the Rangers last year when the Rangers acquired Aroldis Chapman at the deadline. Ragans had always had really good stuff, but he was coming off of his second Tommy John surgery. And for a lot of guys, when you get a second Tommy John surgery, that can sometimes be it for your career. Instead, his stuff got better. His velocity got better. His command got better. And in the second half last year, Ragans was a top 5 pitcher in the league after that trade statistically. And he got the opening day start this year for the Royals, and he's just continued it. And you saw what he did to the Orioles lineup. I mean, that stuff that Cole Ragans has is legitimate. And yes, it's annoying that the Orioles offense was already, kind of cold, and then they go 7 scoreless against Ragans, and you're like, they're not even making him work. The pitch count's low. It is frustrating, but a lot of it is what Cole Ragans did. You see that fastball, he throws it, 96 up to 99. It's a really good pitch, but that changeup is just devastating. It was a number 2 pitch on the day, 10 whiffs on 15 swings on that changeup. And it's not a pitch that has a lot of movement. What works for the changeup is, first of all, it is 10 miles per hour slower than his fastball on average. He's like 95 to 97 with the fastball. He's like 85 to 87 with the changeup. That is a really good mix of speeds. And though it doesn't break a lot, it seems to just be that Bugs Bunny changeup where it goes to home plate and it almost looks as if it stops for a split second right when it gets to the plate and then goes again. And every single hitter was out in front of it. You saw it. The final batter that Ragans faced on Wednesday night was Anthony Santander, first and second, nobody out in the 7th. Ball comes in, 1-2 changeup. Ball is right down the middle, and Santander swings through it because the pitch is so good. He's way ahead of it, and he strikes out. Ragans is going to be special over the next couple of years, and the O's got to see that. But I will say credit to the Orioles. Even though they did not score in the 7th inning against Cole Ragans, they worked back-to-back walks to lead off that inning. Rutschman and Mountcastle both walked. And even though he did stay in to strike out Santander, those 2 walks got him out of the game. Now, the Orioles, despite getting 2 walks to start the inning, did not score in the 7th. But I think getting Ragans out, getting into the bullpen earlier, led to them having those chances to score in the 8th and in the 9th. Third thing you need to know from this win on Wednesday is that Corbin Burnes, the starter for the Orioles, his second start in an O's uniform, honestly didn't go that well. He did not have his good stuff, and yet he kept the Orioles in the game. I thought he was really struggling to miss bats. Now, he did end up with 13 swings and misses, which is still a solid number, but that's on 52 swings. A 25% whiff rate is not great for Corbin Burnes. The Royals were all over him, making contact, hitting balls hard, 10 hard hit balls against Burnes, who, because he was giving up so many hits in this game, I mean, he allowed 9 of them. He only lasted 5 2/3 and threw 100 pitches, 2 runs on 9 hits, 3 Ks. But the big thing, no walks. He didn't let any free passes on the bases. And although he did give up those 2 runs early, 1 in the 1st and 1 in the 3rd to Kansas City, he was able to battle and stay in the game. I just felt like he didn't have his best stuff. Like his cutter command was not as pinpoint as we usually see from Corbin Burnes. The curveball and the slider just weren't as nasty as you normally see. And I felt like the amount he was getting hit by like an average at best and probably below average lineup in the Kansas City Royals, you could tell me that that is going to be one of Corbin Burnes' 5 worst starts of the year with the Orioles. And that's how good he is. Because you think that stuff did not look good from Burnes today. That could be one of his 5 worst starts. And he still gives you 5 2/3 of 2 earned run ball and keeps you in the game. Yes, what we saw from Corbin Burnes on opening day makes him special, but this also makes him special. Like when he's quote unquote bad to his standards, he's still this good. And that is why it is so important to have a guy like Corbin Burnes at the top of your rotation. Fourth thing you need to know from the Orioles' 4-3 walk-off win over the Royals on Wednesday is that I thought the high leverage relievers for the Orioles were awesome. Now, Mike Baumann did not look awesome. He gave up a home run to Maikel Garcia. He had a 4-pitch walk. He just looked kind of uncomfortable on the mound once again. But once the Orioles turned it over to Danny Coulombe and Yennier Cano, those are the guys that kept the score at 3-0 the way that they did. Coulombe's stuff was filthy in this one. And to be honest with you, so was Cano's. Coulombe goes an inning and a third scoreless, retires all 4 batters he faces with 2 Ks. Cano goes 1-2-3 with 1 strikeout in the top of the 9th inning. Neither of them allowed a hard hit ball. I mean, it was just the best stuff from the 2 of those guys. For Coulombe, I mean, you saw him mix the cutter with the sinker, with the sweeper, with the curveball, and just had the hitters off balance. With Cano, the sinker looked good. The changeup was awesome. He threw a couple of ridiculous changeups out there. Those 2 guys are going to be just so important to this bullpen this year. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles win over the Royals on Wednesday is that I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not ready to make a roster move, but I am a tiny little baby bit concerned with Austin Hayes and Ramona Rios right now. Just a little tad bit. Hayes just hitting 111 at this point with a 349 OPS, another tough looking game for him at the plate. I actually thought the Orioles may have considered pinch hitting for Hayes in the 7th. He came up with 1st and 3rd and 2 outs, Orioles trailing 3-0 with the righty MacArthur on the mound. I thought they might have even gone to Cowser. It is tough to pinch hit for a veteran leader like Hayes in the 6th game of the season in that kind of spot, but Hayes just looked lost and he struck out in that at-bat, went 0 for 3 with a walk and 2 Ks in this game, just hasn't looked good. He was really bad in that AB. And then Ramona Rios still doesn't have a hit. He's 0 for 13 on the season. He went 0 for 3 in this game with a pop-up and a couple of dribbling ground balls. He's only hit 2 balls hard this year. That's something Ramona Rios has always done at the very least. Even when he's not producing and even when he's hitting the ball on the ground too much, he's generally hitting it hard, which helps him get out of slumps. He's not hitting it hard now either. Just 2 hard hit balls for him on the season. And he has not yet hit a ball over 100 miles per hour off the bat. He is the only Orioles regular, I believe, who has not done that yet. A little concerning for Arias. Something that we will certainly monitor. But the Orioles get the win either way they do it. And I got to say, like, playing that game, having a 5-hour rain delay, we're going to get to that next. You know what? We're going to get to that next. I want to talk a little bit about that. All's well that ends well, right? The Orioles win the game in dramatic fashion, but that was kind of a headache on Wednesday, wasn't it? We'll talk about that here coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That is the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by GameTime, the best place to go and buy tickets, because GameTime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and even easier. I didn't think GameTime could make it faster or easier, because that is just the best thing about GameTime. Maybe you're looking to get to the start of the next homestand when the Brewers come into town. Well, you can look at those matchups. You can find flash deals with good prices. You can get your tickets at the last minute. GameTime has everything. And prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. You can buy tickets right on Utah Street and go into the ballpark. Save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets to sports, including the Baltimore Orioles. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. For a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the GameTime app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. Again, that's code FIRSTPITCH, FIRSTPITCH, for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So before we move on to maybe the most insane AAA game I've ever seen after a pretty insane Major League game, let's talk about what led up to that insane Major League game on Wednesday. The Orioles played in some crappy weather this week. Let's not lie. Monday wasn't great. Westberg walks it off. Tuesday, I had tickets and just didn't go because the weather was kind of a disaster. Orioles lose. And we're all looking at the radar Wednesday saying, okay, this is a 1 o'clock scheduled getaway day game. There is no way the Orioles are playing this game. You got multiple storm systems coming through the Maryland area. You're looking at when they're coming through. It's supposed to be the worst in the afternoon for a 1 o'clock start. You're like, there is no way this game is happening. I figured the Orioles might, like early in the morning on Wednesday, just postpone that game. But there are multiple factors that came into play. First of all, despite the Orioles having an off day on Thursday, the Royals do not. The Royals are heading back home to start a series on Thursday night. And so you couldn't just move the game to Thursday. And also, this is the only series where the Royals come to Baltimore this year. So if you want to try and do a double header, well, that makes it a little tougher. Now, I never understand why it's not easy to just play a doubleheader when the O's go to Kansas City. Heck, they go there later this month, April 19th through 21st, a weekend series in Kansas City. Just pick one of the days, play a doubleheader that day, and have the Orioles act as the home team, have them hit second. I feel like that's an easy way to do it. I know the Orioles don't want to lose a game in their home ballpark. They don't want to lose the revenue from a game in their home ballpark, but that felt like the easy way to do it instead of do actually what they did in this game. And actually what they did is have a 5-hour rain delay. Now, the Orioles announced around 12:30, 12:45 that the 1 o'clock game would be starting in a delay. I think everyone saw that coming. The next thing they did was did not notify anyone about anything until the tarp came off the field around 5:15-ish. And then around 5:30, we got word that, okay, it would be a 6:05 first pitch. 5 hours after the scheduled first pitch. Now, there's been rain delays that have been 5 hours before in Major League Baseball. It's not a brand new thing. But you would think at least there'd be some sort of communication from the Orioles, from whomever. And generally, this is an Orioles decision. I believe once the game starts, it becomes an umpire's decision in terms of rain delays and stopping and starting. But before it even starts, I think it's a home team decision. What are the O's doing here? A 5-hour rain delay? I mean, think about the people working at the stadium covering the game. The fans who bought tickets and are going into the stadium, what are you going to do for them? 5-hour rain delay. This is how I see it. Anyone with access to the internet or to the television news could have told you that the Orioles were not going to start Wednesday's game at 1 o'clock because of all the weather in the area. At the worst, on Tuesday night, you say, because of weather, Wednesday's game has been pushed back to a 4:05 start. And even if, which they would have, you had to push that back, at the very least, fans know, okay, it's not a 1 o'clock start, it's a 4 o'clock start. Okay, that's a 2-hour rain delay. That's bad, but not so bad. You play a baseball game, you go home. 5 hours of a rain delay is bad enough. 5 hours with no communication whatsoever. I don't get it. Now, I'm much happier because the Orioles won the game. It looked like a stinker there for 7 innings. I was going to be much more upset about what happened. But, again, as I said, all is well that ends well. The Orioles win it on the James McCann walk-off, and so you feel better that the O's got that game in. And yes, I get it, right? You'd rather play the game today because it's the getaway day, because they don't come back to Baltimore, because the Kansas City Royals have an off day on Thursday, because you don't want to have to fit it in August or September on a random shared off day when you're in the pennant race and lose an off day late in the season. I get that. Daniel Allentuck of the Baltimore Banner, though, did tweet out the Orioles and the Royals had a mutual off day later this month where the Royals could have just come back to Baltimore for a day. I get that there's travel issues with all of that, but it feels like some of those options are better than a 5-hour rain delay with no communication for anyone. It is what it is. The O's won the game. It's behind us. It's just sometimes Major League Baseball and these teams they don't seem to make the common sense decision. And sometimes it works out for them in the end, like I think it did here, but sometimes it does not, and it turns into an absolute disaster. And it's just, I don't know. It's baseball. It's big companies. They do it all the time. It is what it is. Just peeved me, so I had to get to it because just sitting around for 5 hours could not have been fun. You know what was fun, though, on Wednesday night? A James McCann walk-off. You know what was also fun? What in the world the Norfolk Tides did on Wednesday night. I got to talk about this coming up next to finish off the pod. Just one of the more unbelievable offensive performances you'll ever see. I might just read the box score. The game's still going on as I record here. I might just read it out. That's coming up when we come back. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks. To me, Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play fantasy sports. Spring training is over, and the baseball season, as we know, is officially underway, even if the games start 5 hours later than they should. So don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Just take your pick of more or less on any of those stat categories and add them to your Prize Picks entry today, and you can win money. And it's not just for MLB, it's for the NBA playoffs, it's for the NHL, it's for the college basketball tournaments as well. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So before we go today, got to get to a couple of pieces of Orioles news and notes, some a little more somber, some just unbelievable, honestly unbelievable. And we'll start with the unbelievable. That is what is still currently going on. As I record here, it is about 10 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday, April 3rd. What is still in progress is just insanity. What is going on in Charlotte, North Carolina? Currently, we have started the bottom of the ninth in the AAA game between the Norfolk Tides and the Charlotte Knights, the AAA affiliate of the White Sox. The current score, which Wanderson Charles is on the mound to close it out, so this might be the final score, is Tides 26, Knights 11. You're hearing that right. Tides 26, Knights 11 is your current score in the bottom of the ninth inning with now one out, as Orioles legend Brett Phillips just struck out to open the bottom of the ninth inning. I am still in complete disbelief at what has gone on in this game. Let me get you some nice, I'm not even going to go through some pitching lines. What I will tell you is Danny Mendick, AAA infielder for the White Sox, pitched both the 8th and 9th innings of this game, and he gave up 6 runs on 7 hits. Now, we know how good this Norfolk Tides top 5 of the lineup is. Holiday, Norby, Kjerstad, Mayo, and Stowers. It's kind of ridiculous. It's unfair. They are all at this point major league caliber hitters just playing in AAA, and all of them will probably hit in the big leagues at some point this year and produce in the big leagues. And they all have insane numbers so far on this young AAA season. And Wednesday certainly helped. And I just want to read out these box scores. Let's start with Jackson Holiday. 4 for 6 with 2 walks, 2 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. He's got 2 doubles in this game. Connor Norby, the number 2 hitter, 2 for 5. Well, rough day for Norby, 2 for 5. 3 RBIs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and 3 runs scored. He also has a double and a home run in this game. Heston Kjerstad hitting third. Are you ready for this one? 5 for 7 with 10 RBIs. Let me say that again. 10 RBIs for Heston Kjerstad, a strikeout and 4 runs scored. He's got 2 doubles and he's got 2 homers, a 3-run shot in the 6th, and a grand slam off the position player, Danny Mendick, in the 8th inning. Insane. Next up, Kobe Mayo, 5 for 7, but somehow only 1 RBI. 5 for 7, only 1 RBI. Let me say it again. 5 for 7, only 1 RBI. Kobe Mayo, what are you doing? How are you only getting 1 RBI? He's got a triple, by the way. Kobe Mayo does, so that's pretty cool. But pick it up, Kobe. I mean, come on, 1 RBI. Kyle Stowers, 4 for 7 with 7 RBIs. 4 for 7 with 7 RBIs and 3 runs scored. How did he score those 3 runs? Well, Kyle Stowers had another 3-homer game. Remember at the end of spring training, Stowers had a 3-homer game? Oh, yeah, he just did it again. 2-run homer in the 1st inning, 2-run homer in the 6th inning, solo homer in the 7th inning for Kyle Stowers. And I wanted to pull up how far he hit these balls and what he did to these baseballs. Kyle Stowers in the 1st, 107 off the bat, 391 feet for a homer. Kyle Stowers in the 6th, 105 off the bat, 423 feet. Kyle Stowers in the 7th, 100 off the bat, 381 feet. Would you like the Heston Kjerstad home run numbers? They are fun as well. 392 in the 6th, 98 off the bat, 372 in the 8th for the grand slam, 99 miles per hour off the bat for Heston Kjerstad. What's going on? Like, we talked about how good the AAA Norfolk Tides were last year. They were named the best team in minor league baseball. With the offense they're displaying right now, they might be better. Connor Norby, 353 feet, 99 off the bat. David Banuelos, the backup catcher in Norfolk, he hit a homer, 373 feet in this game as well. Got a shout out to David Banuelos. Like, what's going on? And I mean, I got a shout out to my guy Peyton Burdick as well, who's hitting 6th in this order. I'm a big believer of Peyton Burdick. He had a nice 3 for 5 night with an RBI. How about that? Chop it up, shout it out to Peyton Burdick. Like, hey, you know, some guys aren't the biggest names, but I believe in him. And oh yeah, Peyton Burdick did hit a homer in the 9th inning, 400 feet, 104 off the bat. Now it was off a position player, but he still did it anyway. And all these guys shouldn't get the credit, just the prospects. Let's even give credit to Peyton Burdick. Let's even give credit to the other guys in the Tides order because they helped get to 26 runs. Diego Castillo had a 2 for 6. David Banuelos had a 3 for 6 with the homer. Errol Robinson only a 1 for 7, but we love Errol Robinson. That is what Norfolk just did to Charlotte. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. On a night when Justin Armbruster would like to forget what he did, he allowed 7 runs over 2 2/3 innings. That didn't really matter. This AAA team is just hilarious. I can't wait to see all 5 of those guys in the big leagues. Now, I don't think all 5 of them get to the bigs this year with the Orioles, but there's a good chance we see at least Holiday, Kjerstad, and Mayo all playing for the Orioles at some point this year, maybe all in the same lineup by the end of the season. 26 runs on 29 hits, and the game has just gone final. Wanderson Charles closes it out, 26-11 win for the Tides. 26 runs on 29 hits. Anybody gets hurt, anybody, Austin Hayes, Ramona Rios continues to struggle, there's your guys right there. Had some other stuff to get to. Was too happy about the Norfolk Tides. We'll get to it on tomorrow's episode. Remember, the Orioles are off today, not just because it's 24-hour rain delay. No, they really aren't playing a baseball game. We'll still be back on Friday to get through some Orioles news and notes and preview the weekend series as the Orioles hit the road for the first time to take on the Pittsburgh Pirates. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.